we condemn Hillary Clinton. We think it's criminal, and that makes her unfit for the White House because of the behavior she engaged in, this reckless behavior. So do we find it acceptable because Julian Assange is right now leaking out this classified information that has to do with Hillary Clinton because it's Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm not necessarily sure what the answer is, because I think that if it's out there and it's in the public square, it's a public issue.
Right.
And we can't just ignore it and say, we're not going to cover this because we don't like the source.
Right.
But I think that I think there's a difference between saying, look, this particular information is out in the public square and this is what it means, and this is what we should think about it, and putting Julian Assange on for an hour or for half an hour and again, treating him like he's a hero this week, when the very next week, when he starts leaking things about Donald Trump, we're all going to think it's terribly awful because Donald Trump was never in public office. And so therefore his information is more private than somebody else's information, even though, you know, for instance, with the DNC, that's a private organization. It's not a government organization. And they had a legitimate right to keeping their internal communications proprietary. Right. They did. Yeah. And as much as we enjoyed their discomfort over this, there is a fundamental fairness issue here, which is that private organizations have the right to some sort of privacy. That's not true of governmental operations. Yeah. It's only true of governmental operations when we're dealing with classified information, but Congress has a legitimate oversight. The courts have a legitimate oversight over some of those things. And to just put it out there like this it's really wrong. It's theft. And what we're doing is we're sort of incentivizing more theft in the future.
What do you say to those who claim, well, it's different because he's a whistleblower, and that this is whistleblowing? It's not so much an agent of chaos, it's just whistleblowing.
It's not whistleblowing. This is not somebody who worked in a government agency who saw wrongdoing and raised legitimate issues by exposing information that would normally be considered proprietary. It's not somebody who works even in the private industry, private sector, somebody who's working for a company that is perhaps violating the law and needs to expose information that would normally be covered in a non-disclosure agreement. And I would say Jeffrey Wigand from the tobacco industry would be a great example of that. There was a lot of false testimony that was being given to Congress. He had information that exposed that, and that is true whistleblowing. What Julian Assange is doing is not whistleblowing. He's aggregating stolen materials from people who could have gone to Congress, who could have gone to the courts to talk about this. Instead, they stole the materials, they handed it off to a third party so that they could, so that they didn't have to have their hands dirty in some of this. And that's not whistleblowing. It's a different sort of thing. It would be the same thing as saying that media that came across the Pentagon Papers, for instance, for another famous case from a few decades back, were in the form of whistleblowers. That's not true.